Welcome to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. I know. Look, I love it when my guests are waving and they're like, "Hey." So you guys, welcome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Have I got a guest for you today? Um, she's I'm going to call you my new friend.
Hey,
My new friend. We have actually met. I mean, some of these folks are like brand new friends. I, we've met via email, and that's it. So we've actually met in person. She was here at ABHMS for an event, and I had the pleasure of meeting her there. Wait, did I say who I was? I said I'm Meg. I said that part, and then I got so excited about my guest. So, see, Eden, I told you this is what happens. Well, hey, everybody, I'm Meg. I'm Reverend Meg Biddle. I'm National Coordinator of Ministry Life here at ABHMS. Okay, there's my commercial.
there we
Now, there we go. I know. Now, on to the show. And my fabulous guest, it's Eden with a smile. I
that's
mean,
me.
that's a great, like, even with a smile. Um, Eden Carlton.
That's
Um, Eden Carlton. Are you Reverend Eden Reverend
I
Doctor?
am a reverend, but I prefer not to go and use my title because I find people are not as authentic with me when I use my title as they
Mhm.
are if I don't use my title. So I don't
I
usually use my title.
I completely understand that. So, Edith, um, first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the fun, the madness, all that stuff. Welcome, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so we hadn't met before. You came for this kickoff event.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there are people who haven't met you either. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll just go from there.
Sure, sure. So I do actually sign my name Eden with a smile, and my moniker online is Eden with a smile. So
I
I
Googled it
did
and I
do
was like, I love that.
that.
Smile. Awesome.
So I'm Eden Carlton, and I am a co-vocational person. So my sort of one business is Marlani Consultants, and I am a strategic consultant who works with corporations, with churches, other nonprofits, and even small businesses to help them plan and change and navigate growth, right? To navigate change and growth. The other aspect of me, if you will, is the ministry side, which I am the founder of an organization called Between Churches. And that organization exists for people who are deconstructing their faith, who are decolonizing their faith, they're questioning their faith. It's a safe space for folks like that to land without judgment. It's 100% digital. It's a safe space online. They can ask questions and not be yelled at or, feel judged as a result of it. And it's just a safe space um, in these times that's very much needed.
Mhm.
So, that's me in a
So
nutshell.
the between churches thing, di- is it laypersons? Is it former pastors? What kind of
So who's
people?
leading, you mean? Who
I
helps
mean, who
serve?
who come to you? I mean, right? For your between churches thing. So
Ah,
like, is it
okay.
a,
Sort of
is
like
it
who's the demographic?
yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, uh, it's a good way to sort of talk about how
Yeah.
Between Churches started because my original model for Between Churches was to have a Facebook group that I
Okay.
expected that people would come into, they would ask questions, and I would answer those publicly. So essentially, my content for the group was going to be crowdsourced, right? I figured
Mhm.
there's lots of questions people have. They'll write the content for me. I don't have to plan anything, right? That failed miserably.
Right.
Okay. And the reason it failed is because most people did not want to be publicly known as asking questions. So there were people who were in ministry, who are leaders in ministry, who would ask me questions behind the scenes and ask me, what I felt about some of the challenges they were going through, how they should face it. Should they leave their church? Should they stay? Should they stay in the faith? Should they leave? Should they explore something else? No one, very few, very, very, very few, like maybe one person out of probably 80 that joined the group was willing to publicly make any statement, and by public,
Mm.
I mean post a comment. So that original model failed miserably. And so the people who are involved, all kinds of people from all over the world are now involved with the ministry. But it was after I shifted away from that, hey, you asked me a question, or let's talk about this topic. That is when really things shifted in a different direction and broadened our scope.
Okay. So you go through this doesn't work. And I get how that's hard to say I'm questioning because,
Mhm,
then you've lost your faith. Well,
mhm,
no, I haven't, but
mhm,
things have certainly changed, and I think God wants us to ask
mhm,
questions. I mean, how dare we think that God is too small to handle our questions, you
mm.
know? So when you had this shift, this change, what did what did that look like?
Yeah, so what I started to do was, instead of doing a model of crowdsourcing, which was easier on me, right? I took on um, three really tenets around between churches that I wanted to affirm people and their questions because they had been rejected or judged for so long about questioning. Some leaders might take it personally because you asked a really challenging question in a public space.
Mhm,
And so I wanted to make sure that between churches was, again, a soft place to land, a place where you could ask a question without judgment. And so I was really focused on affirmation. And as a result, literally affirmations. And I do affirmation daily. Well, it used to be daily. I found I need a Sabbath. So I do it 6 days a week. It's just a short little reel, which for those who may not know is a short form video, less than 15 seconds. It is then shared on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And many people relate that way. They engage that way. That is the primary way we really get most of the people who engage with the ministry. And I get to hear things like, good golly, I really needed that
mhm,
today, with a crying emoji, right? Really meeting people at where their need is. The other aspect of it was, as well, I wanted to be able to provide information for people upon which they could make decisions about critical topics that were happening that can impact the church. So I also offered sessions with leading experts. And one of the sessions was last year, like deconstruction in the church. One was sex, gender, and the church, and the other was digital ministry. And so those opportunities. And then monthly, I also had a interactive discussion, which I tried to make multi-generational. I had some millennials there, a couple of Gen X people, as well as some, I'll say, Gen Jones, as well as boomers, to talk about things about faith and spiritual practice. So it's an amalgamation of moving towards that shift, moving towards people want really short form content. They don't want to spend an hour, half an hour listening to what you have to say, giving them information that can spark discussion, and then leaving it up. They don't want to jump through hoops and say, well, I have to be there on Thursday at 7 o'clock. In the Zoom room, well, maybe I'll just stream it Facebook Live and you'll catch it then. And if you don't catch it then, you can catch it when you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just scrolling through. And if it's interesting to you, you'll stick with it. And that shift is really what drew more people in.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
It makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, who's got the time, the energy, the all that to sit and watch, listen to? I mean, yeah, I do like audiobooks and podcasts and things like that. But it's on my drive to
Right.
to work. So
Yeah.
I had to sit, you know, hmm, maybe not so much. So I have so many questions and like
Let them rip. Just let them rip.
I
I'm
know,
here
but
for
like
it.
I was thinking the whole between churches, like I'm like, wow, I could think of like former pastors that could use that kind of that kind of space to bring all that comes with that
Mhm.
and healing, you know, to find some healing. So maybe
Yeah.
you don't just bounce from one church to the next. You actually take a little time and be between churches, you know?
A little or a lot. I'll
Yeah,
say that. That's not a popular opinion, but it's a little or a lot. Each
right.
person, you're responsible for your own spiritual journey. And, there's currently a lot of talk about religious trauma, right?
Mhm.
And so people are learning about, trauma informed care just in general, but now trauma informed care in regard to religion as well. And some of the experiences that people have shared with me have been pretty challenging and pretty difficult. And it is interesting that I did do some statistics, and I do want to mention just this one.
Sure.
So there's something called the nuns, which are people who are completely religiously unaffiliated. And then there's the duns, right? The people who said, "That's it, I've had enough." Right? I'm not doing
Mhm.
this way anymore. And there was a study that was done with just a small study of people who had left religion. They had left their religion that they grew up with, and they asked them why. And more than half, of course, left because they intellectually just could not align themselves with the faith that they had grew up with any longer. But 11% of the people in that study, and statistically that's relatively small, but 11% left religion because of the unwelcoming attitude that they received when they went.
Mhm.
Another, I think it was 20 or something percent left because of religious trauma. And
Mm.
so this is the room we're in that we need to read, right? We have some really great churches and we have some really great spaces where people get to express and worship in ways that they find affirming and comfortable. But there are a lot of people on the margins who don't have
Mhm.
that same experience. And the goal of Between Churches is not to create a church. My intent is not to be a church. My intent is to give you a soft place to land so you can make a decision as to what you're going to do next. I'm the hallway, if you will, between the churches.
I like that that you make that, you know, th- this is where I stand.
Mhm,
I am not to be this substitute. I am just I don't want to say placeholder, but I like that hallway.
mhm,
I like that a lot.
mhm.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so what's your why? Like why between churches? Was
That's really interesting. And it's a great story because it really emphasizes how God starts with small things. So for me personally, I don't think Between Churches would have existed if I didn't have my own deconstruction and decolonization journey. And I started that journey probably in my 20s. I know I only look 22, but I, that was a few years ago, let's just say. But it was off and on. And I revisited that again, probably around the 2020, and just started again, just looking at my faith and trying to remove the colonized lens from it and then see what faith looked like from that perspective. So I think that was one aspect. But at the time, I was also working at a church, um, serving at a church where I was trying to help them to expand their digital profile, help them to work on those things because they were sort of not so for being online prior to COVID, but COVID shifted everybody if you wanted to exist.
Right.
And so I was part of a group called Church Marketing University, and I was working to get my digital marketing certificate. I couldn't quite do it with the church because, again, they weren't quite on board. It wasn't quite something what they were looking for. So I had ended up leaving that church and I said, well, now I'll just work on it by myself. And I'll either use the data from the church that I worked with because I had all the knowledge. I just couldn't complete the certificate in that I had to demonstrate. I had to show them the tools that they had taught us rather. I had to show them that I did those things as well. And I couldn't do it with them. So on September 11th, 2022, I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to start. Let me start filling it out. I'm going to do this every Sunday. It's like 12 lessons. I'm going to document it every way. I'm going to get it done. So I started writing it. And for the first time, usually they ask you questions, what's your name, what's your church? And when it came to the church, it used to be that was an optional field. Well, in this case, they said it's now required that you have to put your church down. So I said, well, what am I going to say? So I just said between churches, right? And then at that point, I had to build a website because now you've got to see why am I here? So I was asking those whys. What is this about? Why would this be happening? What is this for? And I just looked at it and I started writing and I said, well, what I said, it's a safe space, someplace soft for people to land who are deconstructing, who are decolonizing their faith, who are even bored with their faith. And they don't know what to do about that. They don't know how to live in that kind of friction or conflict. And as I continued to write the words for this website I was building, God spoke to me and he said, Eden, you do know that this is really big, right? This is a big thing. Because I was trying to do a homework assignment, okay? And that's all I was doing was homework. And he said, this is really a big thing. This is a significant thing. And I said, I just took a breath. And I said, wow, it really is. It really is. And that's really the why. That's how it came about. It was intended for one thing, but God has used it for something else.
Have you had that moment where you have interacted with someone and you've been like, yeah, this has made a difference. Have you had that yet?
I almost teared up because I regularly get DMs in Instagram, mostly, about people who said, I really needed to hear that today. I really needed what you said today. One person who was in a significant, difficult position emotionally, who wrote and said, it was your words that got me through. And every time I hear it, I'm moved, I'm almost on the verge of tears because these are relatively small things to do. And people they just really want to be heard. They just want to be seen. They want to be heard. There's a organization called Text in Church, and their motto is people just want to be seen, heard, and loved. And that really just sums it up. Just an opportunity to give a listening ear and a kind word to someone in a space where they are unsure of themselves and the world around them consistently tries to tell them that you're not good enough, you don't have this or you don't have that. That's really all people are looking for. And outside of the context of, I've got to go to church on a Sunday or sit at a service to hear that.
Mhm. Yeah.
This comes every day, uh, Monday through Saturday. In the space of affirmations, we'll be adding some spaces to just breathe, meditations that are coming in this coming month of December. And also, again, ways to explore other topics to discuss with people, other ways to explore faith and spiritual practice, because it can't just be the way it's always been. Now, you're gonna
Mm,
find out, Meg, I'm a futurist, okay? I'm not a person.
mm,
I'm a new wineskins person, okay? Okay. I'm a new wine and new wineskins person. And it can't just remain the way it is. If we remain only in the ways that we have consistently looked at ministry and looked at ministering to people, the church is guaranteed to die. It's some churches are already on ICU and they think they're growing because they get members in, they get a member, people to join. But in fact, if you've not shifted, it's just really a mask for your long and slow death.
yeah.
Essentially, we've got to.
I I could not agree more, really. I mean, I think the church is always going to exist in some form,
Mhm.
but I think um, we're doing a great disservice by thinking that it is going to be this building with the steeple where everybody comes, because
Yeah.
that's just
Or the large multi-purpose room that's only used twice a month, right?
Mhm.
While there's
Yeah,
a community around you of people who could use tutoring and spaces to do other things.
exactly.
And one of the great things as well is that even with the shift, right? Even as we shift, there's a movement called the Fresh Expressions Movement. I think it
Mhm.
came out of the Methodist Church. And so church, as you said, church will exist because church will look like going bowling and talking about God, going to brunch and talking about God, going to the bar, for no offense to anyone, going to the bar and talking about God. That it will exist, it'll be in the park after you've had a jog. It'll be in your home after, while you're on social media. This is really the fresh expressions really is the shift that we've got to learn to shift into.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why you have things like the dinner churches now
Mhm.
that work. And I know when I was in upstate New York, when I was serving at a church up there, the Catholic church, they had a one beer, one question night at the bar. I'm not judging people with the bar and the whole lot. We're Baptists. We do what we want. And not all
Exactly.
my, yeah, whatever. Um, so that's it's the whole meeting people where they are, and
Yeah.
by that we mean going out, because last time I checked, Jesus didn't just sit there and be like, come on over.
There
No,
you go.
he
He was hanging
was
out
a
with the
move.
buds, right? Well,
Exactly.
he was hanging out.
Exactly. So I mean, I think, yeah, I think all this is beautiful, and I think you're exactly right. Now, do you have like, I hope that you wouldn't need it, but I'm sure, given what I know about you, you probably do. But that, like, is there something in there that if somebody says something that is concerning, that you say, okay, whoa, time out. This is bigger than I can deal with. You need to go.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I've not encountered that yet, and that's on both ends, right? Because there are people who may be in um, difficult situations emotionally or mentally, where
mm,
it demonstrates maybe they're having suicidal thoughts or something like that. Absolutely, I'm directing you to someone else. I'm not your counselor. I'm the
right.
hallway again, right? I'm not the counselor. But there's also people who have a lot of vitriol and have some negative things to say, right? And I have ways to um, escort them as well. It's called blocking. I
Yes,
have plenty of
yes, it
ways to
is.
handle that as well, because one thing I especially in the Facebook group initially, I especially was very adamant about is you will not come in and abuse someone who already felt abused, uh, leaving their church or having questions. I'm not going to allow you to do that. And that's one of my rules. And so I also don't go for the hey, beautiful, blah blah blah. No, we're here for we're here for a reason. I understand the scam is things, and I'm not here for that. So there are other services and things that I would point
Right.
people to if they need. Because again, I'm the hallway.
Mhm.
I'm a very luxurious
Yeah.
hallway.
I love That's right. That's right. We can love
There's
Jesus and like nice things, you
concierges and
know?
everything.
Exactly. Exactly. But no, yeah, I understand that whole and the yeah, that's just on like my list of things I don't love for 1,000 Alex
There you go.
is the that stuff. So, but I'm glad you haven't encountered um someone where you've had to do that, but that
Mhm, mhm.
that those safeguards are there
Absolutely.
are there. And yeah, and I have been to one of those fresh expressions, conference, and I think that those are great, ways for people to realize,
Mm,
hey, um, there are other ways to do this, and it doesn't have to look like a building. And it's, in my opinion, better if it doesn't look like a church building.
mm,
So I I love that you offer all that. I'm sure given what you do in your other role, like
mhm.
that must really inform you. I mean,
Yeah.
or help at least some
Mhm.
to go.
Absolutely. From a strategic standpoint, absolutely. From a project management standpoint, from an ability to organize and do things that will serve people's needs. And especially, I'm an IT person as well. So that's where I really lean into digital because I did want just a total digital space.
Mm,
And some of it came about because, even in 2021, we were still dealing with the vestiges of COVID. Even in 2023, we are still dealing with the vestiges of COVID plus RSV now. And there are still plenty of people who don't want to go out, who don't want to be out. But the convenience of I can just pick up my phone and I can press a button as I'm relaxing in my home or doing whatever. I can turn on my smart TV and watch something or participate in something that's real quick. And it doesn't take all my time. I don't feel like it's a withdrawal from me in order to participate.
yeah. Yeah. No, I get all of that, all
Mm.
of that, and not having to deal with the politics of a organization and all of all of that.
And if I can add, and one thing that I
Sure.
wanna say, if I can sort of somebody may be questioning, "Sure,
Yeah.
that sounds nice, right? Sure, it sounds nice, but is it impactive?" And I wanna thank you, Meg, because it had me take a look at what has Between Churches accomplished over the last year. So as I mentioned, we started in September of 2021, and by 2022, I knew that that failed and it wasn't working. I had to shift, but I didn't understand how to shift. I then came up with this idea, but I didn't start this until January 2023. So there's a daily affirmations, as I mentioned. There's also topics on key topics or critical topics for the church, and then some interactive discussions. So across all my social media platforms, which is for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, follow me if you would like. That would be great.
We'll put all the link, everybody listening and or watching, we'll make sure that, per the usual, we put all the goodies, you know, the links and the ads and all that in the show notes. Never
Thank you.
fear.
Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
But
Back
since
back to you.
January, we
Yeah.
have reached, it's at least just in Instagram alone, we have reached over 200,000 people in just Instagram alone. And that was only 2 months of Instagram,
Oh my.
right? I average monthly now about 14,000 people on Instagram alone again. On Facebook and TikTok and YouTube is just growing because I only just started it because I had a friend who's not on socials, but she loves YouTube and YouTube Reels. So I started it there. On Facebook and Instagram, I average about 8 or 9,000 a month. I'm sorry, on TikTok. Yeah. So reach is incredible. So my reach in the last 28 days alone has been 29,673 people.
I don't know that I would call that first one a failure. I mean, really.
Well,
That's
this was before. This is after I
I
shifted.
know. Yeah, but had you not shifted, had you not gone through,
Mhm.
then those thousands, literally thousands of people that you now have the opportunity to minister to.
Exactly. And
And
you're a tech person, so you understand it's not just reach, now it's
yeah,
engagement, right?
it's
So
engaging.
for engagement, it's about 6,000, a little over 6,000 people a month.
Yeah,
So when you go to church on Sunday, are you all hitting those kinds of goals? Are you looking at that between your in-person and your hybrid digital experience? It's easy to reach 30, 40, 50, 100,000 people. There's ways I can tell you how to do that. I know how to do that, right? I even have a certificate now, right? That says I can do that. But the engagement, getting people engaged, right? And making sure that people have a similar experience, both in person and online, that online people are not just voyeurs of what you all are doing in the sanctuary is really, 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 really important. So digital is a great venue, right? As I'm showing, I started on January 27th with doing these affirmations and giving just short bursts of encouragement to people online. And this is monthly where we've gone. I had one video that literally had 48,000 views. So these are the kinds of things that, because it resonates with people, they're like, yeah, this really is what I needed to hear at this time. But if it comes from a space of wanting to dictate to people, they're not going to receive it. If it comes from a space of you need to get your life together, they're not going to receive it. So
no,
we have to even shift. And I know people are super uncomfortable with that. We have to shift how we're saying it. We have
yeah.
to not just what we're saying. It is what we're saying, but also how we're saying it.
This
But
is
it,
so
it,
good.
it works, And as they say in church, I don't know if they say it in your church. If it'll work for me, hallelujah, it'll work for you too.
And if they don't say it in your church, listener, viewer, you know, we know churches where they do. Um, Not trying to take anybody away from their places, but you know, we can name a few. You
Mhm.
can go and oh,
And let me say one more thing about those
mhm.
numbers to put it in
Yeah,
context.
yeah.
So just like in church, you have members and visitors, right?
Mhm.
So for me on social media, for those who are not as familiar or not as comfortable with technology, it's about followers. Who's following you or who's not following you. If they're following you, it's sort of like a member, right? If they're not following you, then they're like a visitor. So the majority of my content is with visitors, with non-followers, right? So I only have 9,000 followers between all four platforms, right? I only have 9,000 followers, but it is a reach of 28,000, 29,000 with only 9,000 followers. That's lots of visitors, right? And the other thing is, who do you think is the primary generation that is receiving this?
Okay. Yeah, that was what I've been wondering. All that was
Mhm,
one of the questions I scratched over here on my posting
mhm.
note. So either it's those older folks or it's like the younger. I think it's like got to be
Well, what choices are outside of that? You got the olders or
no,
the
right,
youngers?
right. No, like I think it's like either our like our older boomer generation, like
Gotcha.
or I'm thinking more like our young what Gen Z
Mhm.
is where I mean I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What's the answer?
More than 50% of the people who engage with my content are millennials between
Are
25 and 44. It's millennials, more than 50%.
really?
Yeah, more than 50%.
There's your Jeopardy question answer. Right. Wow.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
that's next followed by in Instagram, it's followed by Gen Z, and that's I even have, believe it or not, some followers who are, between the ages of 13 and 18.
See, that's what I was wondering if
But it's
about
a
that.
very so there's only 1%. It's a very, very small percentage. Mostly it's, 18 to 24 Gen Z.
Okay.
And
And
then
then
dep
LGBT
say
community?
that again?
The LGBTQ community at
So
all?
I don't they don't give you demographics on
Okay.
any kind of, gender preference or
Okay.
gender identity. They just give you
Okay.
age and I'm lying. They do give you gender identity, but they only give you 2 choices, man
Okay.
or right?
Okay. So they'll
So
do the
it
nice
does
one.
not really lend
Okay.
itself well for that. But the and based on the platforms, like certain platforms are geared for people. Facebook is more boomers, IG is more millennials, TikTok is millennials and Gen Z, right? And so there you sort of have leanings into the automatic demographic of that thing. I would say boomers are the least responsive, to be
And then
honest.
I'm the generation that everybody forgets.
X. Gen X, they 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 come in almost last, second to last. They don't engage much with content. I shouldn't say everybody doesn't engage with content. Millennials engage far more. Some Gen X do, but some
Yeah.
primarily don't. But
Yeah.
isn't that typical of Gen X? Gen X
It
is like, just leave me alone. I was left alone anyway. I'm going to do my own thing.
I mean, yeah, he forgot us all of our lives. Why not now? You know? Mm.
That's pretty much the sentiment.
I mean, it is. It is. And so it's just our you might as well just, slap it on the t-shirt and we wear it every day and everybody just
Yeah.
yeah. So, I need to know about the joy thing
Ah,
because
yes.
that I
Yeah.
mean, I I can't wait to see how you answer this question because you said I would be surprised, right, by your answer.
Yeah.
So, what is that thing that brings you joy? Like if she's gonna say like taekwondo or like,
Zip
okay,
lining through
yeah.
Mexico. No,
I
I'm not
mean, nope. Nope, I wanna live. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll pass. I'll live vicariously through the other people for that one.
Mhm.
But, I really find joy in so many places. So, I find joy in my daughter's laugh. I find joy sitting on sand, hearing a symphony of waves,
Mm.
feeling a warm embrace of the sun. I find joy in music that moves me and makes me want to sing and perform concerts in the car and dance programs in my house. Those are the
Mm.
kinds of things I love, especially since it's been autumn, driving through areas like Valley Forge or
Mhm.
Ridley Creek State Park and just looking at the beauty of nature. Those things all bring me joy. I look for joy all over the place, I'll tell you. I
I
really
can I can tell. I really can. Uh, Folks, this is my friend Eden, and, when we're done, we're going to talk a little bit more because I got ideas now.
Okay.
I got some ideas. So what? Anything else? Like, I mean, I know there's so much else like we could do. Like, but are we
You'd
leaving
be here
any?
another hour.
So go check my friend Eden Carlton, founder of Between Churches, out. I mean, we've got betweenchurches.org. We got her email address out down here, and we will make sure in our show notes that we've got all of her ats and all that stuff. And so, like, you might be my most famous guest thus far.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No,
That's
thank
quite a compliment.
you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful for you and these ministries. Your co-voc. I've never heard it as I've heard it as multi, as bi, but co-voc. I like that. They really, I feel like they really must marry together
Absolutely.
very well. Very
I
well.
can't separate. I can't separate them.
So, we thank our watchers, our listeners for being a part of this. New episodes air at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, but you can find us anytime. So you go to your search engine and just put in there Ministry Mondays with Meg, but you got to put the with Meg because there's all sorts of Ministry Monday people who had ideas too, but you don't want to go Ministry Mondays with Tom. Tom's probably very nice, but come here where we ramble and we have fun guests and we learn lots and share about life and all that stuff. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Blessings to you and for our audience. We'll see you next time. Bye.